Hello, everyone. Happy to see you here at the Detroit Design Month, the event Showering with Identity. I'm Dominykas Karpovič, a partner and innovation lead at the Critical Research and Design Agency, and today I'll be your host. Happy to see you here, and as you can see, I'm sitting at our office, which is a part of our culture, of our identity. And as you will see later during this conference, during this event, the backgrounds will play a part in telling our stories. So now let's move to the theme itself. In the current fast-paced world of wanting to experience something, be a part of many phenomena, we rarely become truly acquainted with something or even somebody. One moment we hear about the most efficient management technology. The next, it is irrelevant due to the change in the attitudes or technologies itself. We rarely have a chance to actually adapt to something, not mentioning to be with a particular phenomena for a proper amount of time. The same is happening with various aspects of the identity realm. Research is done by delivering a few generic questions to a small amount of teams. Visual language is devalued to scattered logos and covers, and more. When identity is not integrated and aligned, what impact does it actually create? Today, we'll do a very simple act. We will get more intimate with identity. We will shower with it by getting closer with topics such as context thinking, city identity, circularity, researching identities, companies' identity, the relationship between community and identity, and post-war city identity. I think we'll have a very fruitful panel discussion too, where we'll discuss shortcomings when it comes to the process of identities, discovering them, revealing them. And now I have an honor to start the presentations with a story about the approach that defines our agency's identity, as it encapsulates the perspective we're looking from. And we all are quite those in a strategic realm in a lot of situations when we find ourselves in uncertainty. And what do you do then now? And what do you do then? You can panic. Yeah, that's an approach. You can jump into know what you used to do and be safe, or to choose some other direction to be and deal with that uncertainty. We, the Critical Research and Design Agency, apply context thinking. Why? Why would you think that there are not enough various methods and approaches that we could be with and we can apply? It is because it frames the relationship with challenges in the most human way. We think that, we have experienced that. First, it connects the best that we tested and refined on us. Design thinking, systems thinking, phenomenology, and various other human and social and other approaches and methods we applied during various events, various practices, challenges during our different cases and works. Second, the context thinking refocuses attention. What is very important, it refocuses attention from objects to relationships. Because each object is perceived as a network of relationships, not a static form. As you can see here, this is a gift, my daughter's gift, and I see it as I perceive it as a creative act. When my grandmother sees it as a thing to be trashed instantly, and my wife sees it as something very unique and interesting to show maybe on Instagram or just to her friends. So you see a particular object, but it frames different perspectives as it is always networked with particular relationships. Third, context thinking expands the process to include sustainability and impact. We are looking, when we apply context thinking, we're looking through social, economic, cultural, and environmental perspectives to define that context and measurement procedures afterwards. And now, drums, please. We are going into context thinking. A big scheme. It seems quite a lot to comprehend, but don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Step by step. Let's move step by step and see how it works. So at the beginning, we transform challenge, a particular challenge that a client or an organization or a situation comes with in a particular phenomenon. So we're translating it into the human world, that challenge. For example, if we have a question and the client comes with the question, how to improve coffee sales in Lithuania, maybe it's worth looking at through the lens of what does it mean to drink coffee for a Lithuanian dad, a particular human perspective with a particular audience, with a particular psychographic clientele. Then we have to look at that context of that challenge. And we're looking at it from 4 perspectives that I mentioned before. One is social. So what are the defining relationships there? The other is cultural. What are the defining symbols, principles that are manifesting themselves? Then we have the economic. What is the main value exchange system there? So we're talking not about money, but money is just means to have the value system. So what is the value exchange system there in that context? And environmental. What is the connection with nature? Is there? If yes, what kind of? Or maybe there is none. And then we're moving to the sense-making stage, where we're transforming gathered data and information into insights, answers, and stories. Because the information gathered has to be comprehended, it had to be translated for human world to be understood, and for designers, creatives to have an approach and perspective to work with it in the most human way. So let's say we're taking an example, quick data from one of the researchers, that the most important words in a particular research was seaport, Fachwerk, cozy, breathing, and spending time in the city center, 53.2% said that's the way how they spend time in the city. At home, 42.9%, and cultural events, 41%. And there was a lot of data there. And then we have a story out of it. We have a narrative. By taming the regenerative energy of the sea, Klaipėda and its people breathe in a sustainable rhythm. You will hear about this case, about Klaipėda case later on too, because it's one of the cases that is multi-award winning and has a great recognition within the international audience. So this is an example of how we came into certain conclusions and solutions. And then we have the stage where we have a particular sense-making information, and then we need, those are the roots from which ideas and solutions are growing. And then, with the Klaipėda case, we have certain solutions, certain ideas, certain paths to explore. And then we're moving to the stage of applying those solutions to that particular context, because without it, we don't know if it works or if it doesn't, if it will be recognized and comprehended and appreciated. So as for the Klaipėda's case, we tested with particular stakeholders, we talked with them, and we saw that there's a certain path, and the path was a bit different from what was the ideation stage. And as you can see here, the change is quite different, but certain aspects and certain elements remain. And then we have a particular solution that works and that is appreciated and is recognized with that particular context that you're working with. And then we need to see, so this is a particular change that we made to that context, but what that change is about. So we need to see how that impact manifests itself. And it's a very, very difficult act because, to be honest, not a lot of agencies and not a lot of even organizations or nationwide stakeholders do that, because various things of various aspects that when you deal with, when you need to understand the impact to find a formula to measure it, it's a very creative and very precise and careful act that has to be made, and a lot of time has to be spent on that. And as for example, we worked with with Lithuania's culture impact abroad, and the particular research was done how that impact is seen and manifests itself, and how it could be then reapplied and rethought and used later on. So this is, again, a practice of context thinking, which is crucial to understand. So when you're doing something, what's the impact? Why you're doing that? And the impact is not in a certain particular small point, but it's to the context that you're working with. And not to forget that you need to reflect on it, to reflect on the process, acknowledge the great things that happened there, and to see the improvable ones in that process to grow. And we have our own practice. Other agencies probably, or other people and different organizations have their own. We have some fun ones, some fun elements. It has to be, a little bit of fun after the process to celebrate a little bit. And you may ask, why bother? Why to do all that process? Just let's sit down and let's do the small creative work, and maybe the impact will be great enough. And yes, we have a lot of examples of cases that clients are happy. We made an impact, and multiple awards won, and everybody could be happy with that. But actually, what I wanted to underline is that, most importantly, that it reminds that challenge that you are dealing with is the context. It is the context that you're working with, and you have to appreciate and you have to recognize all four perspectives. You have to be careful and respectful when you're working with cities, when you're working with various places, when you're working with various cultures. It's not a particular object that you can destroy and then reconstruct. You have to be very, very careful about it. And context thinking reminds about it. And what it does, by having that attitude, it transforms that context that you're working with for the better. As simple as that, for the better. The context thinking looks quite noisy when you look at it through this lens, as in this slide. But for those that want it a little bit simpler, the simple version, a little bit of bright colors, we have a simple version of that. So if you want, you can take a screenshot, or you can drop us an email, and we can send you a better quality PDF to carry, I don't know, with you, or put on a wall. So this is the context thinking that our agency, the Critical Research and Design Agency, is applying to various challenges that we are working with. And it works. It's efficient, it's respectful, careful, deep, critical, and actually it works through engagement. What is very, very important, when we work with something, we work, or with a particular phenomenon, we work together with the context, with people, with stakeholders, with the various different historical aspects, and so on. And this is the end of the keynote about this approach that defines our identity. And now, as a lot of context thinking is happening when we're dealing with city identity, I want to ask Eglė and give the floor to Oslo, where she is now with another project, and to tell us about city identity and what's happening there. Eglė, the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for passing me the ball. And I'm Eglė, I'm a senior researcher at the Critical Agency, and I will be inviting you to reflect on the meaning of the stakeholder engagement in the context of developing city identities. And we'll be exploring the question together, does engaging actually matter? And I will be inviting you to this reflection by presenting a case study, the work that we've been doing, that we did in 2021. And I'm talking about the co-creation of the narrative and of the visual identity of Klaipėda city that Dominykas already mentioned shortly. So the intention actually was to give the presentation from Klaipėda, but I found myself in the business trip in Oslo, and it turned out not to be a coincidence, because actually, you see, this is Klaipėda, and Oslo is a great inspiration for developing city identities, because it was developed through a really wide scope stakeholder engagement program, which included various meetings, workshops, reflections, analysis, and research that permitted Oslo to develop one of the greatest examples of city brand, city strategy, and city strategy integrated with the actual visual identity of the city. Just to start with, so what defines a city identity and what is city identity? So city identity is basically expressing different particularities, exceptional features of the city that distinguishes it, like in the context of other cities and other contexts. And what is important about the city identity is that it reflects city's culture. It impacts city's culture, intended as many different features of city life, like city traditions, social factors, all the things that we call culture of the city, and at the same time, city's culture impacts city identity. At the same time, the city's identity reflects the image of the city and impacts the city image. And when we develop city identities, we really pay attention to the interrelations of these three dimensions. And so how do we approach this kind of complexity that sounds maybe a bit complex and difficult? So we have a methodology that combines different four perspectives. So the cultural one, environmental, economic, and social perspective. And what we call the city narrative or the city story is basically the essence of these three dimensions. And the city narrative basically becomes a base, informs and inspires city strategy and city's visual identity. And so what actually defines a city? And we believe that it's even more important to ask ourselves who defines the city? Who defines the city? And by asking who defines the city, I would like to stress that our company really believes that engaging stakeholders and developing city identities is extremely important. And by stakeholders, I intend citizens, municipality, organizations, all the different actors that act every day in the city and shape its everyday life, basically. So to begin with, we started a project of Klaipėda, of developing Klaipėda's narrative and city identity, not from scratch. We found ourselves in the situation when Klaipėda city municipality already tried to introduce city logo and city identity without first engaging citizens. And as you can see in the slide, so the situation was quite complex, and the society didn't greet the logo and the solutions that well. But the situation, these complaints weren't unheard, and Klaipėda city municipality took off to another journey, inviting us to develop the city identity that would actually reflect its citizens' perspective, its potential, and its context, as Žemartas Dominykas mentioned. Yes, so what we did, we took off with all the team to what we could call a healing journey, because we found ourselves, in between basically distrustful citizens and, a bit tense, public administration context, hoping for the best. And we started with a context and strategic document analysis to first understand the context of the Klaipėda city as well as possible. And then we created an information platform. We created Klaipėda that included, basically that became a touch point between the citizens and other city stakeholders, and also the creative team, where we provided the most essential information about the engagement process, about the news regarding the project and the possibility to participate. And this touch point was very, very important throughout the process of engagement. What we also did, we did a citizen survey, and more than 1,200 participants took part in the citizen survey, and we got a lot of wonderful insights about the city's identity, about the four dimensions that we mentioned: cultural, economical, social, and environmental perspective from the citizen's perspective. What followed, a series of online workshops where more than 50 participants from culture, education, sport, tourism, and business sectors participated, as well local communities were involved in the process. So these workshops, since it was like post-COVID context, took place online, but we tried to engage, create all the accessibility possibilities to the stakeholders to participate in a comfortable way and to express their vision of the city. And the topics that we treated in the engagement process, both in the survey and in the workshops, were discussing city symbols, already mentioned layers of the city, social, economic, environmental, cultural. And at the same time, we were focusing not only the present, but also took into account past and future perspectives of the city. And we had like a bunch of wonderful insights, like really a lot of information. And what we came up with as a city narrative, we could even phrase it in one short phrase. So basically, by taming a regenerative energy of the sea, Klaipėda and its people breathe in a sustainable rhythm. Of course, the whole narrative was a lot more like complex, a lot more elaborated and long, but we could sum up it in one exact phrase, that then became a starting point for developing city's visual identity. And I would like to share actually the final result, a video presenting the outcome of this whole engagement journey that we had together with the citizens of Klaipėda. And we could see that video, it's possible. And the conclusion of the journey was a very, I would say, very positive feedback that we got from very different stakeholders of the project and citizens of Klaipėda. So basically, they said it's the highest level work. Marketing professionals said that it will work and it will become part of the city's culture. And as Dominykas mentioned, Klaipėda's visual identity won the gold at the European Design Awards. But I would like really, I'm curious to ask you, like all the participants that are watching this event, how do you think, does engaging matter? And now I would like to switch to a platform Slido that we will see in the screen. And you'll be able to scan you'll be able to scan a QR code and to answer really sincerely. You might not agree with us, but I'm really curious to see your point of view. Do you think that engaging matters? You can scan the QR code or go to slide.com and put the code that you're seeing in the screen and just click yes, no, or maybe you don't know. It's all fine. Just curious to see your perspective. And let's see if you're managing to connect. Oh, we have one answer, and it's very positive. I'm happy to see that. Who else would like to express their view? That looks quite good. Maybe somebody doesn't agree with the one answer. Let's just wait for a couple of moments and move on with the presentations. Okay, so if there's no other answers, we're quite happy about the result. Somebody just completely agrees with us, and we're really happy about that. Thank you. I'm passing my words to my colleagues.
Yeah, so as you saw there, like only one answer, as far as I saw, it was 12 people who said that the only answer that matters is engaging. So engaging matters. My question, Eglė, to you is, as you have experienced the whole process of Klaipėda City identity, the research part, and then how it manifested to the designing the visual language, were you surprised when there were not only one, but like multiple international awards for this case? And so, yeah, if yes, why? If no, why?
Were I surprised? I'm not sure, but I was really happy about that. And why I was really happy, because like awards commission and not only awards commission, like citizens in very particular, seem to understood the value of engagement in the whole process. So not only the final result, but also the value. So knowing, all the backstage process, all the meetings and encounters with the different stakeholders of the city, I was not surprised, but I was really, really happy about the result. Yes.
Amazing that we won. And also I strongly believe that the international design community recognize the process itself. As far as I know, as far as I heard, they recognize the process. So which is crucial to the theme, as you are saying, the engagement, that it matters, and it is seen, because in a lot of cases people are saying that, yeah, but it is important, but nobody sees it. You see only the end result. But as we can see, it is an example that it is the result speaks about it, but also the process is being recognized. So yeah, Klaipėda City and the city's identity. Eglė, thank you. And now we're moving to the other presentation. So Jonas, as Eglė said, she's the senior researcher and strategist at our agency. And Jonas is a design strategy lead, who will tell you about a very complex and difficult topic, circularity in identity. So Jonas, the floor is yours, and tell us a little bit about the background what is the place that you're in?
Yeah, sure, I will. So I'm saying hello from different context, different place, bringing you back to Lithuania, to Vilnius. And as you can see, behind me is the factory. The factory where they are producing those tiny campers. As you can see, one is almost done. This one is not yet. Here you can see the kitchen, and probably also able to hear some background sounds, which is kind of evidence that no, it's not mock-up, it's the real thing. And the thing is that the tiny camper, which is the company, the factory I'm in, as you can see in the slide, they were creating modular system of inner layout, and they were creating it in pre-accelerator, in a circular design pre-accelerator. And the thing is that we, as the agency, we were responsible of few things in pre-accelerator, and one of those things was visual identity. So, our task was to create and to implement the visual identity. So, as you probably already kind of, are able to guess, that circularity was the topic we were kind of pushed to dive in, because the identity, we were not able to create the simple identity, right? Because the pre-accelerator, the circular design pre-accelerator, kind of supposed to manifest the circularity, and identity should help to manifest circularity too. So I will walk you through our thoughts, all the logics we went through till the result. And of course, as you can see on the screen, right, the circularity was the topic we should dive in. And probably for some of you, I will remind, maybe for some of you, this thing will be new. So, I'm even more happy about it. But let's see, what circularity is, first of all. So, as we all understand, right, everything, the products or even the services which are using products, they start from materials, and then some parts manufacturer comes into kind of doing their role, right? Then some product manufacturer, which is combining parts into some product, as we saw on my background, as we see on my background until now. Then, if we are talking about service, some service provider is coming to play his role, and after it, we are bringing the solution to user, right? User is using, and after usage, hopefully, right, we are collecting the result user is leaving for us. Hopefully, user is not throwing the product to trash bin, because the concept of circularity is to prevent this action, right? To throw things into the trash bin, and as some of you know probably, right? So the concept of circularity is to close the loops. And the first loop, and the most kind of desired one, is to prolong the usage of product, right? So to create good quality thing, so it would last long. And later on, I will talk also about the role of branding, how branding helps to prolong the usage. And if we are not able to prolong enough, so we are talking then about sharing things, right? So that's why we are talking about the service provider, because when we are sharing, for example, cars, we are using cars as a service. The third loop is talking about reusing the product. It might be that we are fixing it, we are changing some parts, and bringing back to the market in just as product or a service again. Then we do have the fourth loop, which is talking about refurbishing, when we are kind of separating the product into parts, and maybe using some parts in the third loop, or maybe just using in different contexts those parts, and then etc. And the last loop is recycling. So when we are taking materials and reusing materials, but as you see already in circular design, this fifth loop is less desirable. So we are talking, from very smallest to the largest, right? The smallest is most desirable. And when we are coming to visual identity, so what we try to do, first of all, to to take the visual identity and to put it on this logic of circularity, on this frame of circularity, right? This particular I walked us through. So, what it would look like if we would talk about prolonging, visual identity. So, well, if we do have visual identity, we're prolonging, so it is circular approach, right? The thing is, we don't have an identity, so we don't have anything to prolong. It's our kind of problem. When we are talking about sharing, so maybe we can share identity with a few companies sharing the same identity, right? Well, you probably already able to hear that it even doesn't sound logic, right? Just for example, we do have some grocery store, we do have some car sharing company, and they are sharing the same identity, right? So in the minds of users, it would be kind of, well, inconsistent experience. And when we are talking about reusing, so maybe we are able to reuse some identity, which was in use before and not now, and we can take it and reuse. The thing is that we need to find the identity which would fit our needs, 100%, just will fit. And this is a challenge, right? Maybe we can refurbish an identity. And again, when we are talking about refurbishing, so we are taking some parts from some identity from the past, right? And reusing some parts of it for our needs. And the last one, when we're talking about recycling, in the visual identity context, it seems like we already doing that by just looking into the Pinterest, for example, and by being kind of influenced by those other identities we are looking at. So by critically rethinking those approaches, we defined that probably the only one we can work with is refurbishing, right? Refurbishing identity. And we need to find a resource. So we called some design researcher from Lithuania, Karolina Jakaitė, and asked to find identities from the past, which is not in use anymore. And so we would be able to reuse those. And as you can see, those, for example, are logotypes from the 60s, and they kind of look now quite trendy, right? And from some fish union, Soviet furniture factory, and textile factory, and then various different contexts. But the thing is that it was not enough for us to have only the logo. We need the visual identity. So we asked Karolina to look for more, and she found some kind of evidences and then solutions of past visual identities with logos, with some those motifs they were using in visual identity as visual identity. And this is, for example, those examples are from one factory, textile factory. And and we were thinking, keeping in mind all the time Karolina needed to spend by looking for these resources, then it appeared that the relatives of the designer which created this, they are not willing to give it. They probably are willing to sell it. And then it is not digitalized, right? So we need to put some effort to make it kind of proper nowadays, so we would be able to work on it later. So as you can hear, it sounds like a lot of energy, right? A lot of time and energy to spend and get this proper result. And the conclusion was that it was fail. Right? this way, by going through this approach of circular design, when we are creating tangible things and going into this intangible kind of context, it doesn't work proper. And well, then we raise the question: can the visual identity be sustainable? And then the answer is yes. And I kind of can end my presentation, but probably, well, I will proceed by just unveiling and revealing some insights and thoughts we came up with by working on this question. Because first of all, the sustainable identity, it is same but different. It's same identity as previous. So we still need to assess, whether we're creating a new brand or rebranding an existing one. We still need to work on organize the brand architecture. We still need to create those distinctive brand codes, so the brand would be recognizable and consistent. But in addition, we do have emotional aspect of the brand, and the emotional aspect of the brand is where the branding takes a huge responsibility in the context of circular economy, because the emotional bond with the product, it is a lot depends on the branding, and well, it's the responsibility of the brand, right? So to prolong the usage, so people would use it longer, as I showed before. And yeah, this is the logo of our social insurance company. So for Lithuanians, it probably works, as an example, works better. So the brand ensures the kind of qualitative parameters of emotional relationship. Also, emotional bonding, as I mentioned, it reduces the risk of moral wear and tear, which is prolonged the usage. And of course, emotional bonding increases the likelihood that consumer will take care about the product through all the life cycle and after the usage, right? So it will bring it somewhere, will help it to put into other loop. Then optimization. Of course, we need to think about simplifying and optimizing the brand codes. Maybe we don't need to have 100 of them, tens of them. Maybe it's enough to have one of them. Maybe, or not maybe, we are kind of pushed to think about the sustainable and circular technologies by using in identity. This eco font is very old, you probably already know, but it helps to reduce the ink by 20% in print production. So it already works for many years. And maybe still reusing existing resources might help in this context, not necessarily, as I showed before, by reusing all the identity or some particular parts, but for example, shooter stock, or it looks a bit different in this context, in circularity context, because we do have there a bunch of ready-made solutions we can adjust without spending energy. Then the communication part of the branding, it also takes responsibility to convince consumers that products and services are sustainable, and that sustainability is important, because we're still in educational mode. Also, communication allows to provide information and fill gaps in the consumers' knowledge to help them understand the impact of their purchasing decisions. And but at the same time, the balance, how much we need to communicate about sustainability also exists, because if we would talk more than we are doing, it's already greenwashing. And we are not going to greenwashing in this presentation because it's a topic of communication. And as a result, is this is logotype, circle loop, and the Arial font is used here, and those symbols letters, all the letters are from the glyphs of the font. We were not creating those, but still we do have in mind that we need to create a distinctive kind of logo. And I will reveal some aspects of the brand through the brand book. The thing we delivered. So for example, as I talked about the logo, so you are kind of able to type it, right? And the thing is that with this possibility, for example, on the website, the logo is rendered way faster than the image. So it's already some sustainable solution. For example, simplicity in creating hierarchy of the identity by reducing as twice as less comparing to the previous font and in the size helps to create this simple rule, which for a bunch of designers will turn into understanding faster the concept of identity. So we are spending less time and energy by trying to understand the concept of the brand with the intention of implementation, right? And as for example, the icons, so we are not creating icons from the scratch, we are reusing those. And if we're talking about the themes, because we had those, we are talking about the default settings in applications, in the programs. So we will not be pushed to go through all the tables and then adjust some impression we don't need here. And as for images, we were trying or suggesting to use more black and white images because they weight less. And if we're talking about the printing production, you already understand this is one color comparing to 4 colors, right? So, and as the result, you can see the Circle Loop website, and you can go to look how it looks like as the website, because well, we had a bunch of other materials, but this is not the topic of this presentation. And I will end my presentation with the question of authenticity. And we are able to ask this question because of this experience we had and the result we have, and even experience by trying to register the logotype, because with the rules we do have now, by registering the logo, we were not able to register as an kind of authentic, creative piece. We were able to register it only as a word mark. So the thing is that, of course, we are not able to register it as an authentic piece of design, because it is not. And the question is, if we would talk about tens and thousands of identities which match circular needs, how to deal with those aspects. One of those, the major one, is authenticity. So yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonas. I want to ask one question. You constantly are talking about how, green, plastic, other keywords that are happening around sustainability theme, about circularity themes, are deviating the focus from where it has to be, where that focus, that concentration should be. My question is, where do you think that systemic change has to start for such projects to be implemented properly, and where that mindset has to be, has to begin with? What do you think through your experience?
I will ask a question for you by answering this question. Are we talking here about the product design? I mean, these tangible things, or are we talking about intangible things, about the visual communication design?
Let's start with tangible.
Well, So with tangible things, it's easier to answer the question because it's already even in the strategy of all. I think almost all the world has the goal to till 2050 to reach, or 60 to reach some kind of zero emission, right? Carbon emission. And one of the major approaches they intend to use, for example, Europe Union is taking the circular economy as the basis, constructs how to reach this goal, because there is no other way how to do it. And we already experiencing this now, by all the, how to say, regulations and the solutions from the business pushing us as users to have some experiences we didn't have before. And as consumers, we also kind of demanding for some solutions, right? But if we're talking about the visual communication design, so as hopefully this presentation showed, we kind of in the gray zone. And even if we're talking about the research material, right, from researchers. So there is only few in the world where this question is, where we're trying to dive into it deeper. So, we are still in the fog looking for the answer, and no, of course I will not give you one now, right? Let's go together to the fog.
And another maybe a bit, probably a follow-up for this project. Approximately how much time has it been that you're with this project? Because probably these kind of projects, it could seem that it's one or two solutions quickly done because it's, copied and recopied. So how much time you had to spend on this project, let's say?
Yeah, well, me personally, so I spent 3 years, but it's not only on visual identity, right? So it's all the pre-accelerator, because I was one of the kind of team members who were dealing with the content, with the branding, with the pre-accelerator. But I think, 3 years is also the number, if we're talking about even this summarization I'm bringing today, right? Because it takes time to understand the concept and to work with some adjustments in the brain, so to change some thinking patterns, how to deal with the issue, with the challenges, right? Through the creative process until some result.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You will hear from Jonas more. He will have another keynote a little bit later by the end, before the panel discussion. And now we're moving to another city. We're jumping from city to the city, and now we're going to our research lead, Eugenijus, who is in Panevėžys.
So hi again, Eugenijus is my name, and I'm a research lead at the Critical Research Design Agency. And today, as Jonas said in his presentation, let's go into the fog together. I'm gonna take your hands and bring you to the fog of researching the identities. And we'll talk about creating it versus revealing it. As Dominykas mentioned, I'm here in my beautiful hometown of Panevėžys, which is in northern Lithuania, and I'm in the homestead of Pragiedruliai. It is a beautiful place in the middle of the park. It is a cultural and community center. You can see some freshly made new columns, and behind me you can see some old ones as well from previous years. So it is a good metaphor of what I'm about to speak today. Some past, the present, the future, and the alchemy of joining it all together while we search for identities. I am present here because we were part of helping to reveal the identity of this place, and I think this place is a beautiful leader of forming and shaping the city identity, which we are also helping to reveal together with all the citizens, municipality and stakeholders. So let's dive deeper into the theme of today. What does it mean to reveal identity? And what is identity if we look at it through the lens of revealing? Metaphor is the landscape. It is always good to see identity as a landscape because we never create landscapes, we never conquer landscapes or new territories, we always find them. And sometimes we need to get off the boat to actually do that. To understand it, to reveal and to communicate with the environment, but not only physical or geographical, but also cultural, spiritual, and everything that's connected with human beings. You can call it mapping the identities, and mapping the spirit of it. Latin had a good term, genius loci, which means the spirit of the place. But when we're talking about spirit and finding the essence of something, it doesn't necessarily need to be a land or territory or a building or even a city. It can be a product, a service, a brand, a public campaign, or anything else. We just need to dive deeper into those stories. And a good way of seeing ourselves as a designers, even architects, researchers, is to step into the shoes of cartographers who are charting the unexplored territories. And by doing that, we craft new patterns, we embed the stories and experiences, and we ensure that our work has to resonate with the locale. By this, we define the uncharted and we provide guidelines how to navigate through it. Here you see a picture of the same city of Panevėžys from early 60s, and now it's completely changed through city discovering its identity, building infrastructure around it, and the narrative around it helps people to navigate both through time and through space. The same is with this place, with this beautiful Hampstead. I remember myself as a child playing in these abandoned ruins and in this dark and pretty scary park. And it wasn't a place before, it was just a space or a brownfield. But together with municipalities' initiative, our research and strong help from local cultural institutions, it became a place. It became a place with a story, with its own energy, and it attracts people without any or very little marketing. It just has this potential. And the same, I believe, is going on with the city. It helps by researching it and by revealing it together with its citizens and different cultural organizations, NGOs, businesses, associations. I can see that we help those people to establish the relationship with the city itself. So researching and revealing identities are the way of creating them. It's always good, even when we see the identity as a landscape, it's always good to go a little bit deeper, to go beyond the surface. And going beyond the surface, sometimes it's scary. The depths are scary, and sometimes there's cold, and big predatory fishes are lurking in there. However, the design is far more than meets the eye. It's just like a canvas. It hides the strokes beneath its surface, and beneath it, there's usually the meaning, the journey, the emotions, and everything that people connect to. And again, it doesn't matter whose identity are we talking about. The brand, the city, even the state or the building. We have to engage those layers. We have to reveal them. And as a researcher, I want to talk a little bit about specific tools that we have. we can all use them. Dominykas in the beginning already mentioned contextual development, so it's always very good. It doesn't matter what identity we are thinking about to look from different perspectives, so different contexts, cultural, economic, social, environmental. These sheds new light on the issues we're trying to tackle. We can also use technology as mobile ethnography, which enables target audiences, users of products or spaces, to become researchers themselves and convey the meanings, images, sounds, emotions through their perspective and their lenses that becomes mobile phones in this matter. Symbolic mapping the symbols of the place or the service and expressing the values of it, paying attention to psychographics, not only the age, income, or geographical locations, but also hobbies, fears, expectations are very important and helps us on the way. And we can know them only by going to the field, coming to the place, talking to the people, individually through interviews or in the group discussions through focus group or surveys or workshops. And it's also important to make sense of it all, to connect those different methods and build a story out of it. The story is how we perceive the world, and it's the only way to get to know identities, whether it be brand, service, or a city. But the last one, I think, is the most important. We as creators and as researchers or even initiators, politicians, we have to belong to what we are trying to know. We have to become at least a little part of it, and only then we can try to become one with it and get to know it. So we know that we need to discover new lands. We need to get off the ship to do that. It's very important to do it in an engaging way. Eglė illustrated in previous presentations how we do it on practice. But the research itself, it also needs to have a story. And I will tell you a few stories how we combine the research in this case, in Panevėžys case, and how it helped us on the way. Very shortly. The dance of dualities is a way of perceiving things when we try to think about something, in this term identity, from different perspectives that are not usually opposing, but contrasting each other. So one of them is to look at it from the perspective of sacred or profane. Sacred is something that people value, that they pay attention to, they celebrate it, and profane is the mundane tasks and of their lived environments that they experience day to day. Sometimes when creating identities or researching them, we concentrate on one or the other as the more important one. But looking at both of them, how they interact and how these two spheres dance with each other gives totally new meanings. In case of Panevėžys, you can see the historical photos of the dance and singing celebrations in the park itself, where I'm here now. And we also see the industry. And it's very tempting to go one way or the other and to make city a sacred place where everybody sings and dances in a unified way, or to make it an industry 4.0 city, developing robotics and attracting investment. We try to dance with both of those dancers, and it gives totally new meanings to us. Another way to look at it, of course, is looking through people and nature. Sometimes we see those as opposites, but looking through how it plays out and how people shape nature and how nature shape people back also helps to build a story. And those interconnections of what is sacred and profane for the people and what is sacred and profane for the nature, it helped for us to build a story around the park itself, this building, and we are building the story around the city as well. This is just one way of doing that, and we can think about other contradictions or opposites that should be celebrated together. It could be culture and industry, it could be tradition and innovation, it could be communities or tourism attraction. So seeing phenomena from those different perspectives and celebrating the entire spectrum, acknowledging that it exists and respecting it, helps to reveal the identities of places in this case. Another story from our research and the way how the research is done is looking through time. I'm also very happy about this attempt to look at the city identity, Panevėžys identity in this case, because design, if we want to design with authenticity, we must respect the legacy of the past. In this case, we are not building anything from the scratch. Usually identities are growing and stemming from something. We also have to harness the vibrancy of the present, what is happening now at this moment, what is important to the people and what exists now and here. However, we need to anticipate the ethos of the future as well. In doing so, our design becomes like a temporal canvas intervened with the threads of time. And using this metaphor, in this case, we explored the engagement of citizens of Panevėžys. We organized different workshops themed the past of the city, the present of the city, and the future of the city. And it really helped us to concentrate on people like personalities, buildings, infrastructure, symbols, and other aspects in the specific frame of time. And some of them we saw are continuous, and some of them are more important for one aspect or the other. But we are talking about the identity. It is all of those aspects helps to build, like those columns behind me, the new ones and the old ones, they both stand here and they are both important for people. Knowing all this, you can really feel yourself in the fog. There are so many ways to look at it. There are so many paths to take, and it's always the most tempting, I guess, to go to the easiest one, to try to impose or create based on our professional knowledge or our feelings about the situation. However, working in practice, we work a lot with different specialists in the field, both designers and politicians and communities and businesses. All the stakeholders are kind of seeing each other suspiciously. The creativity is always good, but needs to be tempered, and the will of the people or the contents is also very important, but it cannot be the only source. So I think that the metaphor of alchemy, which is a rich lore of ancient science that stands as a testament for transformation, the pursuit of turning the base metals into gold is a good way of seeing things, how we can turn the data, the infrastructure, the people into the identities. And when we apply it to design, it offers a process of bringing forth this golden essence from different contexts. And it is a fusion of creation and revelation. The magic lies in the juncture where creation meets the revelation. And here we are not just crafting or revealing or researching, and we are not just creating it from the scratch. We're doing both simultaneously. And we must combine these raw materials, these base metals of the world, of people's opinions, and infuse it into the creativity of talented designers, of visual language, talented designers of services and buildings, public spaces, etc. And by forging identities in this way, we can create beautiful things. And it is a hard way, it is a foggy way, and it's a mystical dance, I would say, of identity design. But as alchemists, we must shape and transform, casting both shadows and light to find the golden mean. So this was my story. I hope it resonated and echoed to you. I'm very curious to know if it did or if it shaped some sharp edges, but hopefully it will help you to continue your path if you're thinking about identities, if you are part of some identities in creation or revelation. I hope it was meaningful and it will help on your journey as it did to ours. Thank you.
Thank you, Eugenijus. A very elaborate and in-depth presentation, I would say, with alchemy and with what is suitable for a researcher and for a research lead. I have a question which is related to the translation part, because in our agency we have two nucleus. Both two nucleus are, similar and have the same weight. There is a research and design part, and in most agencies that we have encountered, it's either design or research, and to have both and to have a dialogue between them, it's a challenge. And how do you perceive, and what is your experience when you need to translate the research information, insights for design to manifest itself, to translate to the creators who are dealing with design, with various visual language or other service design solutions? So how does it work, and how do you find it, and what works?
Just like Jonas, I would like to give you the question back. However, I thought about it when preparing this presentation, and I think my last part of the presentation was inspired by this question, that it can be a science and there are specific methods of how to transfer research data to the creative part. However, that's why I chose the metaphor of alchemy. It is an infusion and it needs a little bit of magic to happen. In those cases that are successful, it happens as a combined effort. And in those cases that it doesn't work, there are a lot of spaces where mistakes can be made. But the participation from the beginning of the creatives, people who are gonna create the end product, participation in the research, and people who are researching and working on revealing identities, participating in the creation of the end product or being part of it, it always helps to spark this magic. So I think this is again the same answer. You need to belong to the process to have the result.
Yeah, thank you. And from my end, I would say from the innovation perspective, when we're talking about the qualitative leaps, as far as I can see, that it's crucial to have everything under one roof. If you're trying to give the baton to one agency and the other agency does the research, or vice versa, the other agency does the design. If you don't have that belonging between those cultures, it's difficult for magic to appear. And I think we experience that, and still are experiencing, and probably will be experiencing this magic happening just because different cultures belong together under one roof. So yeah, I was very excited to hear about alchemy and magic. It relates to me. I hope it relates to the audience too. And now we're moving to our design strategist, Benjaminas, who has his birthday today. So probably, as you can see from the background, he is basically on a vacation to some extent. Maybe he'll tell a little more about it. But it's his birthday. So again, congratulations. And he will tell you, and he will talk about company's identity, about the belonging aspect of it. So Benis, where are you? And tell us your story.
Not a vacation, under an apple tree. I think it's a very fitting place to tell a story.
Good. So let's go.
Yeah. as Dominykas said, it will be a story. It will be a transformational story about an organization which has found its identity in a very obvious yet kind of hard to spot place. I call this a journey of self-discovery because this is a story of brand positioning, or the brand positioning purpose is to find one space in larger world. And why self-discovery? Because our approach to brand positioning is to include stakeholders from within the company. Therefore, the end result is always collaborative, and the company basically self-discovers discovers itself. The plot, the company is Glotera. For 20 years, Glotera has been creating exquisite and unique travel experiences for the most sophisticated target audience. One story I overheard is that they have booked a private jet only for a wedding dress delivery. So you get the point. It's on the very, very, very luxury end of a spectrum. And we were invited to do multiple tasks here, but I will focus on the identity side of it. And while preparing for today, I've discovered a really interesting parallel between Glotera's journey and one of the best-known journeys, hero journeys of all time. So, sorry, but I will nerd out about Lord of the Rings for a bit. But I hope this metaphor will help me tell a more interesting story. And if not, I can see myself as Gandalf for at least following 10 minutes. So it starts a bit from the past. So Glotera's positioning story takes place shortly after the service design workshops. Our service designers, shouts out to David and Carolina, were working a little bit before we came up to work with positioning. And from the past, they've gathered a lot of data from extensive research. They were looking at staff, they were interviewing staff, they were gathering customer interviews, a lot of documentation. Basically, they were trying to understand the whole workflow of the agency, and it was really extensive research, and it really enabled us to see this to see Glotera case more clearly. And of course, coming from all this information from service design, we've done our bits of analysis from positioning sites, like we've discovered the context of Glotera. We've looked into market research and so on. So, and in combination, all this data gave us very much very clear and a lot of good insights. But two of them are really key in telling my side of the story today. So one of the insights was that travel managers, so the Glotera is rather big company. I think they have like 10, 20 travel managers, and they're very individual. They have very individual approach to their work, to the way they're establishing good relationships with their clients, the way they communicate with their clients, the way their personal attributes and characters plays in this kind of collaboration with client in order to create an exquisite journey. Also, this individuality is can be seen, for example, when one prefers working on business journeys, other manager prefers working like South America cases, or another one knows every luxury boutique in Europe. So this was one. And second insight was that planning a unique trip is much more creative project than just an administrative task. Understanding that managers do not merely manage a trip, but create an experience was profound. and the attention to details and ingenuity and creativity that goes into creating a journey is really big. There are more sides, but these two are really key to telling a couple next chapters. So knowing all this, we went into positioning workshops. Just as in the Council of Elrond, we were including all stakeholders in process. The key was here that participation in workshops was open for everyone in the agency. I won't go too much into details on how and why inclusivity is important in revealing identities, because Eglė has talked about engaging a lot. It's suffice to say that these workshops include discussions, difficult questions, exercises that leads to brand positioning that stems from within the organization, rather than someone, some consulting guy with a beard and a hat coming and showing how to do things. So for Frodo, the Council of Elrond was really a pivotal moment in his journey. He accepted the role of great importance and danger, as well as travel managers here in the workshops of positioning. They were presented and accepted a role of travel authors. So as you can see, even from the definition, the new name led to clearer communication for clients. Like who works in Inglaterra and what purpose do they serve? The semantics of this name shifted the mindset of a team, as well as the client perception of a brand. As well as Frodo, some clients had difficulties and struggles perceiving Inglaterra differently. Maybe the change was too quick, too drastic, or perhaps it wasn't communicated as clearly, but the shift happened. And yeah, basically we came out from the positioning workshops with this understanding that, well, it's not managers that create journeys, is the authors. Yeah, and in this version of the story, I'm focusing on one side of a journey of belonging and identity of each individual in the context and the company, but there is equally significant aspects of identity, and there are two pillars that you will see at the end of my talk really defines Inglaterra. And one of them is the shift from managers to authors. But the next one is that we've kind of closed this agency to general public, and we've shifted this business model to referral based model. And I won't go too deep into this pillar, but the insights for this transition also stems from service design research, because we found out that there were problems with work overload and projects that do not fit agency's profile. Basically, there were clients that walked through the doors and were looking for off-the-shelf travels, and this doesn't, bring neither satisfaction for the authors nor revenue. So yeah, so these two towers forms the next chapters of the story. So, well, by now I think you get where the story leads us. Frodo destroys the ring, everything goes well. Actually, this journey is really difficult, but everything kind of goes well. So our heroes, our authors, they got their spotlight. their personalities and differences is what separates Glotera from the competition now. They truly became the heroes of Glotera brand identity, and you can see their uniqueness in every aspect of brand identity from now on. The concept of travel by authors were communicated in slogan, and the visual identity was created by our team of brand designers. Regina, shouts out to Regina, came up with the metaphor of a shadow. And I think it works very, very well, very beautifully in different perspectives, because you can interpret it as a shadow that appears and helps clients guiding to the journeys, like ever-present helping hand, or like you can understand that Glotera operates from the shadows, like it's closed agency. And of course, the subtle aesthetics, I think it just works wonderfully in the luxury context where privacy is one of the major concerns. So this is how Glotera looks right now, and where those insights have led us. Last chapter, this scene makes me cry sometimes. I think I don't know how about you, but the smile of the Frodo when he leaves for the Undying Lands. I'm not sure what awaits Frodo there, and I'm not yet sure where this narrative will lead our heroes in the end. I know that this transformation has profoundly changed Glotera's clients' perception to the authors, and also it gave authors of a new sense of purpose and belonging. And it certainly had changed Glotera's identity and visual identity for good, but the transformation is ever going, and you know, the trip is there. I will leave you with my thoughts on what made this journey possible. It will be 3 key takeaways. One of them is extensive research. All of this information, it has enabled us to come to insights that otherwise wouldn't be able to find. I think it's plainly seen from the story, and I haven't even shown you the Excel files, the amount of Excel files and spreadsheets there. Inclusive positioning process. So including everyone in the agency is a very good, as my colleagues have spoke earlier, is a very good way. Because in this case, authors stood up for the task at the right moment and with the right knowledge. They knew from the beginning what they're signing for, and there's the most important thing, that this decision was there to make. Again, there was no guy with a gray hat and beard that tell you, hey, look, this must be done. They made a decision. It's their journey. And third one is sequential process, because in this case, we started with thinking about uplifting agency services from service design perspective, and we ended up revealing the identity. I know it wouldn't be possible any other way around. You can do identity and you can mix and match things, but the step-by-step process is really really important in this point, seeing like initial insights and where those have led us. It's done. Frodo, you have did it. You've done it. I hope Frodo helped to tell the story more clearly. And I should say that excuse me, Glotera, if you find this offensive. You're not hobbits. This is a metaphor.
Thank you. Thank you, Benjaminas, for the whole story, the actual story. I have two questions. One is serious and the other one is very serious. So let's start.
I don't
with
like
the
any
serious
of
one.
those. No, please.
You want to sit by the tree and just relax? Yeah, but let's go a little bit into there. You mentioned a little bit that we changed the perspectives, the perceptions of the clients towards the Glotera. Could you expand on that? What was the experiences? What were the experiences? And maybe there are certain examples that you could share with us. How you identified the change in perceptions from the clients.
Well, I know a few stories that clients, Glotera's clients, I don't know exactly what happened, but they were not really fond of this change. I think, if I'm telling the story right, because I might be forgetful sometimes, but I think it was something like they were expecting more from authors rather than from managers,
Mm-hmm. So it means that like the change happened, but at the same time the identity, the change within the identity has to coexist with what is happening inside. So if the client has a certain future projected, it has to be managed with the processes inside to keep up with what is happening. So it's also a good place to think through how identity impacts also the processes inside and the perspectives and everything. So it has to be done carefully, as I think your example shows us.
Yeah, and not to create. I will add it to this, and identity should not create unrealistic expectations. So, yeah, maybe it was something lost in communication, not communicated enough in this case. But yeah.
And the most serious question, so why Lord of the Rings, not the Harry Potter or Game of Thrones? Usually between those, the meta stories are happening and being told. So is there any special preferences? Some, I don't know, something related to your birthdays or anything else? No?
I mean, all of those stories are archetypal stories, from Epic of Gilgamesh to I don't know, maybe The Hobbit. It's the same narrative spinning off with rather different characters. I don't know. Frodo seemed really the one that fit the best in this situation.
Definitely. I mean, it touched my heart, and that one of the last episodes where Frodo is looking back, yeah, it's just sentimental. Thank you, Benjaminas, for the story. And now we're moving to Oslo again. Our sustainability lead. Yes, we have a sustainability area in our agency, and Žemartas is responsible for that. So he's also in Oslo together with Eglė, and he will tell us about the relationship between identity and communities and why it matters. And let's see what's there. So back to Oslo. Žemartas, the floor is yours.
Yeah, hi everyone. Nice to be here actually in Oslo. Behind me there is not this way, a growing moss as a painting, just to say that. It's an amazing artwork done by humans, made by nature. So I'm gonna talk about it, I guess, today also when I'm gonna talk about the communities. I'm gonna focus a little bit on nature as well, so as a spoiler alert. But first of all, I would like to, thank to other people, other communities whom I learned from. Of course, one of the big shout outs is for the Norwegian, actually, philosopher Arne Næss, who coined the term deep ecology. My presentation also owes the thanks to the Timothy Beatley, who has written extensively on land ethics. He recently published a very wonderful book on bird-friendly city. So also a shout out to designers to read it out. And last but not least, I'm gonna mention some takeaways from the intergovernmental platform on biodiversity and ecosystem services, as the short version would go IPBES. So we're gonna talk about the communities and how they act out. But first of all, I think we need to kind of describe or define what is the community. So basically, I highlighted the most important things which I'm gonna address. So community is a social unit based or have the common values and identity as well. Sometimes or quite often they share a sense of place. It could be dedicated or given in a geographical area or in virtual space. Some examples about what could be the community. Community could be these professionals who are working on the main topic as the city planning, for instance. They might be coming from different communities, from academics, from practitioners, developers, and so on. Then there are communities who live what they do. So these are communities, as we can see in the cities, different ones, as you can see, right? So one is, and also how they act on within those communities. We also know about communities that express themselves without us seeing them. So this is also an interesting community. We just know that they exist, but we don't know who they are. Some communities are based on work. Some communities are based on fun. And some communities come for the better cause. So this is a picture from Lithuania when the developer wanted to cut the trees in front of the building, and all community came together and opposed that decision. So these are just examples about different communities, but what is important about that they all produce knowledge, and they also describe the world. So it's also what community does. They form the descriptive knowledge, which is basically how the things are, what they see, what are the things, and then they prescribe knowledge. So basically how things ought to be. So these are different types of knowledge, but they are inherently existing in the community itself. So basically, the descriptive knowledge helps us to understand and interpret the world as it is from different communities' perspective, and the world might be very different actually in different communities. As well as the prescriptive knowledge, which offers guidelines and recommendations how to live basically in the world. What is more tangible, in a sense, what communities do, they produce the space. So basically, when we talk about the space, we should kind of have three different notions, which are coming from Henri Lefebvre. So these notions are material space. So basically, this is the physical space all around me. For instance, what kind of community produced this space around me? Then what kind of representations of space exist, what they represent with this space, for instance, what values they use, what aesthetics, what worldviews, and so on. And of course, there is a lived space, so everyday activities that happen in this space. So all of that is formed by different communities. So when we think about the space, we should think that space is not a merely kind of a physical entity, but also socially produced and lived reality. What that does, it gives power, so to say, because the knowledge and the space, the tangible outcomes of the knowledge, so to say, they might have profound effects on individuals and societies. So everything communities produce, that has an effect on us. And this is very important to think about it, because this is a realm of responsibility, and this is how communities bear the responsibility to make those decisions that are inclusive, for instance, or beneficial to everyone, right? So let's talk about a very big community, which is our planet. And here I'm showing the Stockholm Resilience Center's piece of work, a bit adapted by our designers because they thought that they're gonna make it nicer in a nicer shape, regardless that. But this is the graphic that demonstrates that we cannot overshoot the planetary limits or ecological ceiling, as they say. And this is the graphic that shows that there is a social foundation and we should take care of ourselves and our communities, which is very important. And I would like to show you or demonstrate or give you an example how those different emanations of knowledge of how the spaces are formed decides our relationship with nature. So in the recent report by the EIPBS, as I mentioned before, they discussed about the what are our values on nature, and they separated 4 different types of values. They analyzed like 13,000 articles, scientific articles, and then they said there are 4 types of relations between us and nature. So there is one, which is the most obvious one, I guess, in the nowadays situation, that is living from nature. So basically, the nature provides, like the logic from 1700s. Then there is another one, living in nature, which is also treating nature as a house. So basically, what kind of relation do we have, and what kind of resources we need to sustain our living from nature, to support us. Then there is living with nature. So this is more relational situation, that we relate to nature. We know what it is, that we express our feelings towards other more than human beings. And there is the last one, living as nature. So it's basically embodying and treating ourselves as a part of nature, as a physical one. So the most of those 13,000 research papers state that vast majority of our understanding about the world is that we are living from nature. So this is very important, and this is what I wanted to demonstrate, that what kind of values community brings, and how that changes profoundly how we see ourselves in the world. And this kind of colors the power in a bit more different taste, so to say. And what path we prefer to take and why we take it says a lot about ourselves, about our community which we are in. So as another example from Arne Næss, the guy from Norway, philosopher, it's about developer. So he says in his book that there is no way of making the developer eager to save a forest as long as he or she retains the conception of it as a set of trees. So this is very important, that we think about it, how communities act, but also even more important, who is acting out and who is represented, right? So in the developer's perspective, coming back to that, there are many power asymmetries that exist in the world, and sometimes we like to kind of, you know, some people like manipulate participatory practices, and this is very easy, but it becomes difficult if you address power asymmetries and then you start inviting everyone into consideration. So this is a very important part, how you address that, and you should be aware what kind of representation you are hearing. So understanding how communities act out, it's very, very important, and what knowledge they produce, if we are coming back to the knowledge topic, how they produce that knowledge, and why they are producing it. Same goes to the space. So what kind of space they create, how they create it, and of course why they create it. So understanding that is the key about when you want to invite different stakeholders and different communities in the process of development of something that has a profound impact on them, right? So what values we choose to base our decision, and then who is excluded. It's very difficult sometimes to understand who is excluded in the conversation. And then what is even more difficult, give the voice to those marginalized groups, right? So we need to understand and dig into the values of unrepresented, right? So why they are unrepresented, and then who is unrepresented in human society, in nature, in biosphere, right? So this is very important, and inviting everyone to participate in the process is super, super important, because the ways communities are acting out are different. So to give them a chance to present themselves, it's very also important. And the sensitivity to subjectivity is the key, basically. We need to treat communities always as active agents and never as mere objects. So I invite everyone to enlarge your knowing and listen carefully to the communities and what they have to tell. And last but not least, I would like to share an example of one wonderful community, a huge one, Yeah, so you just had a chance to meet a wonderful community that is here to tell many, many things, but can we hear them? So back to you, Dominykas.
Thank you, Žemartas. I hope that the connection is right and you can hear me properly, because there's a lot of noise happening behind me. Because for the panel discussion, I went to the rooftop, to the hotel rooftop bar that we created the identity of, and it again was recognized, and it was a very sensitive one. Neringa Hotel, sensitive in case because it has a huge history, and it was very, very important to be careful what to change and what not to. So I'm here, and as you can see behind me, it's Vilnius, and the rooftop from what you can see, a beautiful city. So come if you are not from Vilnius, visit, beautiful place. And Žemartas, I have a question to you. Usually we focus on negative aspects, aspects of what should be improved in terms of sustainability, in terms of community engagement, and so on. But maybe you could share with us some moments or maybe examples what is happening in Lithuania that promises that brighter future for us, and that can, have this glimpses of hope that the things are getting better in the sustainability realm, in the community's territory, engagement, and so on. So from your perspective, maybe some examples or few moments related to that.
I think what is very important is the growth of eco-philosophy, so to say, and that kind of approach. Not necessarily, we do need and we have the knowledge of ecology, and this is very important that in the processes there are professional people from biology, neurology, any kind of nature people are invited into for instance, into development processes, into the processes when we develop parks, when we develop certain real estate places. But what is also very important that we invite people from social sciences and humanities, actually, because they have the tools and methods for that grasp of subjectivity. So this is, I think, a very nice trend which is happening all over the world, I would say, or at least in the EU for sure. How European Commission is treating their proposals and their projects, and that they appreciate the transdisciplinary approach towards that. So I think this is a very good trend, and in a sense that we get to work a lot with different places, actually, and that the clients understand the value of that keen wish to understand the subjectivities and different ones, and then unveil them. So I think this is the main kind of positive trend which is happening right now in the eco world, so to say, but coming from social sciences and humanities.
Thank you, Žemartas. I mean, for the audience to understand, Žemartas, when he's talking from sustainability territory, is always keen on details and trying, to find places that has to be improved. So when he's talking about the things that are good, so they're really, really good. So it's the same related to Vilnius, which is beautiful, and so the things are getting better. We're working with in a sustainability territory, and we're finishing our keynote session with a keynote from Jonas, who will be talking about a very crucial and important and impactful case that we have been working recently, which is related to the Ukrainian city of Mariupol and the narrative of it and about the process. So it's a very impactful and very sensitive process that we have been through together with various stakeholders and urbanists like Pupa, that you Justina that you will hear in the panel discussion. So Jonas, the floor is yours, and I see you changed the background. So you're in the office?
I did. You changed, and me also changed. So, and I'm back in the office with our CEO sitting, and he's one of those who is viewing all the conference presentations. So the place is empty because it's after the work hours. It's evening in Vilnius, Lithuania. So yeah, as Dominykas said, I will bring you to different contexts, and by saying that, I do have even the slide which is says context, because for those who are not very familiar with Ukraine, with Mariupol city, what it is, what is the situation, which is looking from our perspective hard to believe, but the world is big, and there might be probably different perceptions. So Mariupol is a city in Ukraine, as you can see. It's on the shore of Azov Sea, and it is in eastern Ukraine, in the Donetsk region, heavily impacted by the war. And due to the war, Mariupol has suffered major damages in all the spheres of city life. And as for statistics, for example, 90% of the city and buildings in the city were destroyed or damaged, and 3/4 of the people who lived there, they just escaped the city, and a bunch of the citizens died in the place. And city government in exile decided to create an urban city vision that inspired rebuilding and revitalization after the occupation. So the act was the intention was very understandable. They are willing to prepare to this moment when the city will then they will get back the city, and to have a proper kind of blueprint, to be possible to instantly do some action, right? And we took our place in this process, and we were not the only ones. So because the bigger probably picture of this was the urban vision of the city, and our responsibility was related with the city narrative, which would be as a basis for further even ideas and concepts of urban vision. So, and as one of my colleagues asked to say even twice or 3 times or 4 times, that we were working with city government in exile, with Ukrainians, not those who occupied the city, not the Russian side, right? But with Ukrainians who escaped the city to simply survive. So let's go to the content, and the content is all the narrative I will walk us through this presentation will be based on this dynamic flow of place branding by Kavaratsis and Hatch, which is probably the mostly used by explaining how the place identity works, and by using it as also as a framework how to work with the place identity. And you already saw this in Eglė's presentation previously, and she explained a bit, how those arrows works. But I will remind, and not necessarily all of you heard this information, that the place identity, it, as you already can see, it has those interactions with the place culture and then place image. So the place culture, what we do have in the place, and the place image, how others, do see, perceive this particular place. And as for the culture, so the place culture is expressing, the identity, and identity expresses in the kind of places, cultural understandings, and what they do have there. And this bottom line arrow says that place identity, changes the identity itself by implanting new meanings and symbols into the culture. And as for place image, so the top arrow says that the place identity kind of tape the images of others by mirroring their impressions and expectations. And the bottom arrow says that place identity leave impressions on others and is affecting the perception. So by explaining that, we are kind of good to go to further to the presentation. And before the war, Mariupol city, as probably all the cities in the world, they worked on the strategy, how they are willing to see the city in 2030. And the strategy said that let's have the place identity, as a city with an ocean of opportunities. This was written with big letters in this document. And as for place culture, they were kind of seeking for possibility to kind of escape or moving away from this stereotype of an industrial zone, which was kind of a lot about the Mariupol, and actively developing the local kind of this cultural sphere. And the place image. So the place image, the expectation was that it would talk about kind of, so the people would recognize the city as city of great kind of opportunities for career, for education, for recreation, and bunch of other things, and to city in this national kind of scope, the city to be recognized as a kind of showcase of potential for the progress for other Ukrainian cities. So this was the reality back then, and then, as all of us know, the thing happened. That thing, the war, the invasion, and as you probably already are able to think of, it affected the place image a lot, and affected in a way that those arrows which are coming, from those two different sides, from the culture and the image, they are not efficient anymore. So the image started affecting those sides because the reality became such. And as for culture, right? So there was no even room for culture, right? As we recognize or understand it, because even the cultural workers, they were pushed to put some uniforms and take the guns into their hands and to defend the city and the country. And as for this image, so Mariupol, because of this, defensive spirit, and you probably know the story about the Azovstal and the troop which was in the territory and were defending until, I don't know, for very long, until the last, I don't know how to express, this thing. And it became a symbol in other countries. This is in the image you are able to see some kind of rebelling against the how to say, against the energy, buying energy from Russia in the Germany. So people took the Mariupol as a symbol, right? So this post is saying I am Mariupol, right? But it is not necessary, takes long, because the upcoming image is kind of, the grave, the cemetery, the big cemetery, which city, is became too, and this image is kind of remains, and when we are looking forward, which the intention of all the project was that definitely the sooner the better the city will be deoccupied and Ukraine will win the war, and we will be pushed to bring back this template of dynamic flow of place branding, and by having this city identity as a city with a notion of opportunities, as you probably already can feel, it is not working anymore, right? Because the context changed a lot. And changed because of, we know why, and that's probably the aspect which pushed us to think of some different approach we need to bring as a city narrative, so it would empower people, it would bring some I don't know, some good, goodwill, good expectations about the future of city. So that's why the narrative of the city turned into those words. Mariupol is the reason, and this is even the suggestion for the slogan of the city. Because we even were thinking about the city not necessarily as a location, some particular location, but as more as a phenomenon. Even be able to relocate it in a sense, so it would not be related with all the things that happened there, with some, of course, but not all of them. And with the possibility to work on those further interpretations. Mariupol is the reason for what? So when we are talking about the culture, so it is the reason to imagine, to create a bunch of other things. And when we are talking about the image, so for those who escaped, right? So it's the Mariupol is the reason to return. When we are talking about those who are looking, for those possibilities city was looking before the war. So maybe Mariupol is the reason to invest, or maybe Mariupol is the reason to become a new home, right? So it's the reason for a bunch of stakeholders and different reasons. And the thing is that as this diagram is saying that this is dynamic flow, right? And the time is going, and the thing is that the situation, the context back then when we were working, it was basically 1 year ago, was as it was, and now city is being occupied for a while, and other things are happening, and other layers are covering. Different layers are starting to cover the city, and as for example, this is the city sign in the entrance to the city, and as you can recognize, it is painted into the colors of the Russian flag, right? So, and Russians are populating the city. They are started to rebuild or building some buildings from the scratch with their own concept, right? So it is very likely that probably even the narrative and the urban vision will be pushed to rethink or review, and to be able for us to be able to recognize if it fits this particular situation Ukrainian will get after the occupation. Okay, so that's all from my side, and Dominykas, I'm giving you the mic back.
Yeah, the mic is here. I see people are celebrating different things. I don't know, maybe the event of ours also, but people are celebrating in the Vilnius now. Jonas, I have a question to you, because together we were involved in many more, and Eglė and Justina that you really hear from in the whole process. I remember for me, one of the moments that was very moving was that when we did the stakeholder engagement, what happened that people from Ukraine, different stakeholders who have who it was difficult for them to travel here, who have different contexts and backgrounds and situations, just for the reason to have their voice heard, to be a part of this new vision, they came to Vilnius for this event, for two-day workshop that we held and facilitated. So it was, for me, it was moving, because sometimes even in Lithuania, we work with city municipalities, and mayors or their administrations are for them difficult to find time to have a meeting, and here people from far abroad with difficult situations move here. And for you, maybe you remember certain moments during that process that moved you too.
Well, even preparing this presentation was kind of challenging thing, because it pushed me, to work through this content we had during all the involvement part, right? And while working with the city narrative, which as you probably understand, we were immersed into this context, but of course not so many as those people who came from Ukraine. And for me, probably the most touching aspect was that we, a bunch of the different people came to the workshops we held, and we invited also those previous citizens of Mariupol. Citizens, maybe not the best word to describe those people who lived in Mariupol city, right? Who escaped the city, and of course only women, and who escaped to Lithuania. So we were be able to call them and the stories they told about their experiences, by spending months in the cellar with dead bodies, with someone going out for the water and not coming back, and for us to be able to witness, how this emotion is affecting the people during the workshop, and this was one of the aspects we didn't thought of, because of the lack of experience, and these people, they didn't make until the end of the workshop because it was too intense for them, too hard to be with all the memories. So yeah, that was probably most touching thing.
Thank you. Thank you, Jonas. And now for everybody to understand this, we're closing the keynotes part and we will move to the panel discussion. And it seems that we're on time and I'm happy about it. As a moderator, it seems that I'm doing my job. So we're moving to the panel discussion, which has even a typo in the name, which is failing to identify. So failing to identify the identity. And today with us, we have 3 panelists. We have Eglė Vitkutė, who is representing the critical agency. She's as you already know, senior researcher and strategist at our agency, who is actually very deeply involved in various cases of identities, city identities, very sensitive ones. So she does the research part, and she also translated for the design because she has a design background. So she's unique in our agency, having those 2 backgrounds and trying, translating one into the other. So also on the panel is Girmantas, who we met and we worked a lot on the Klaipėda city identity case, and he was like crucial and instrumental for the identity to be where it is now. And he was in charge. He was the as far if I'm correct with the tagline, he was one of the executives, I think chief marketing officer at the Klaipėda ID, the agency that was responsible, was in between the various stakeholders and the municipality and our agency. So he will carry his knowledge and his experience, and he was also a pro surfer and many other entrepreneurial perspectives that he has. And maybe he'll tell a little bit about what he's doing in Mexico. It's also related to identities. And we have Justina, who is the partner and urbanist at Pupa agency, with whom we worked a lot on the Mariupol case that Jonas recently was discussing and talking about. And she gave us the infrastructure and urbanist perspective on the city and how we can engage that narrative that here we have revealed into the city itself, into the tangible objects. So we have 3 panelists, and I want to start with a very simple question. What comes into your mind when you hear the word identity? Because you have different backgrounds. So when you hear the word identity, it's, it is an uncharted territory. But from your perspectives, it gets a particular form. So Girmantas, maybe I want to start with you. So identity, how does it sound? What does it mean to you?
Well, first of all, hello everyone. I'm glad to be here and share my experience. When we talk about identity, I liked what Jonas touched on his first presentation, that it's about authenticity. What I really liked recently when I discovered that Instagram made 66 million by selling blue check marks, right? So everybody wanted to identify themselves as someone important, someone recognized, and then suddenly everyone became just wearing the same blue check mark. So I think, identity is about finding what separates you from others and embracing that difference, just being unique.
Thank you. Justina, what about you? How does it resonate in your mind?
when you invited to talk in this panel discussion, I thought, what is actually identity for urbanists? And well, I thought that actually when we do urban projects, we always think of identity, but we never use the word identity. When we have a place, so let's say a park, a neighborhood, a city, when we start working in it and when we start thinking what could be the future of the area, how could it be redeveloped, we think, what is the vision? Actually, the vision is the major word that we use. We also think, what is the character or what is the idea of the development? But then I thought that actually vision, character, idea, it's all about identity. So that we work with it every day. When we do the projects, we try to find what is identity of this space and what the new identity should be. So yeah, we work on that. Maybe I can elaborate a bit later.
Thank you. And Eglė, what about you? I don't know, even though we work a lot together, and I don't know what you will say now. So I'm curious too.
Well, in a way, it depends a lot in which context we talk about identity, because we talk about identity when we talk about ourselves, when we talk about the cities, organizations, etc. But similarly, like Girmantas said, I also think that it's a set of particular features that make an object, a subject, distinctive from its surroundings, from elements similar to that one. But I don't see identity as a fixed thing. Basically, I see it more as a dynamic essence of different dimensions. And those dimensions change according to the context. So if we talk about the city, as we talked also before, it might be, cultural, economical, environmental, social dimensions. If we talk about an organization, it's already a different context, and we will consider different dimensions. But what's an identity, according to me? It's the essence, of these elements, and what it comes from.
Thank you. You all have different experiences and vast experience in dealing with uncertainties, with different challenges. I'm curious, do you remember any ridiculous challenges or ridiculous moments that happened through the process of revealing identities, researching identities, or maybe even, I don't know, Girmantas, maybe something related to what you were thinking of when you invited us for a dialogue about the city in Mexico? Maybe there was also a story. So maybe a little bit of a story related to a process of revealing identities. So I want to start again with Girmantas because, yeah, start with you.
Well, we briefly spoke before the panel about the aspect of failing. And I think identities, especially complex identities like city identity, in essence is designed to fail because it's unique to every single person, and we might have 150,000 different perspectives in terms of Klaipėda. It means that 150,000 people will look at it completely different with their own cultural background, with their own educational background, and so on. So by trying to be unique, you will definitely will not succeed to represent everyone. So in a way, it's going to be a big challenge to find those things that actually unite different stakeholders when we talk about city identity. But at the same time, it is something that's very challenging because it's also hard to identify who are the actual stakeholders. And in a way, you could anticipate that politicians have the mandate via the democratic process, via the election, to make decisions and decide what is the right thing for, strategical development or whatever. But it's also not always the case. It's always, especially, at least in our case, we had a lot of, different currents, underwater currents, and so on that wanted to, perceive and then save the status quo and just avoid any change. It's even though change is inevitable in our life, some people try hard to resist it. So I don't know. I think when you were asking the question, I thought about this one particular moment in our process when the City Image Committee the municipality decided that they want to be on the jury, let's say, to decide which way should the project move forward. But when I offered that the only let's say requirement for you to be on the jury panel is to sign a non-disclosure agreement with a fine that was a total of our tender value, basically as an insurance. If anything gets leaked before the process is finished, someone has to cover the loss that city experienced by basically executing this project. And then not a single person got back to me even asking to see the non-disclosure agreement or whatever, and the entire city image committee dismissed themselves from the project. So this was something that I'm in a way I'm happy about, the way we were able to structure it and put that hurdle, let's say, in their way of trying to sabotage the project or whatever. But on the other hand, it also shows that, you know, most people, they talk a lot and they want to be heard, but they don't want to have their skin in the game.
Yeah, I remember certain moments too. Maybe I'll share them later. But yeah, it was an interesting journey, and also was very interesting that because there were many parties involved, and each party was not telling all the difficulties during the process, you know, not in order to manage and buffer everything. And later on, when we had dinner and we understood how many complexities and how many things were happening at the same time at certain moments, and they were transformed into the result that we have, which is, I'm very happy about it. So Justina, now the same question to you. Any stories and challenges or related to revealing identities, working with cities, that you could share with us?
Maybe I will share a story from Klaipėda as well. It's not about the city. The project was about the neighborhood in the city. Now, when you presented, some of your colleagues presented the identity of Klaipėda. Well, I really love the design, the graphic, the story, the videos that you showed, and the images. And for me, as not someone from the city, Klaipėda is that what you showed. It's a sea, it's pines, it's old town. It's like very nice and beautiful. However, if you look at the map, like biggest part of the city is covered by large-scale housing estate, very boring, very monotonous, all gray, all the same, and more than half of the populations are living there. So let's say the majority of the city has nothing to do with the sea and with the landscapes. However, when we talk about the city, every citizen relates himself with what is the best in the city: the landscape, the culture, the history, the landmark, whatever. However, there is another identity of the neighborhood. So we were working on a project which is a housing area, very old, really unattractive, and that was a project about public space and about a park. So we couldn't create anything related to the bigger city identity, because it's like a bit too far away. Like it's another unit, another life is happening in those large housing areas. And when we were creating the identity of the the urban public space of that neighborhood, we had public participation meetings. It was very interesting because the area is quite old, the neighborhood, so majority of participants who came to the meetings were older people, and it was interesting to hear that they had completely different needs than the young people who are living in the area. Yeah, and then we were doing design of the park, which combined the places for calm recreation, places for youngsters, places for walking, and the project is already implemented like 2 or 3 years ago. And what I hear from people, let's say, who visit the park, or when I'm in the Klaipėda and who are in the park, so they tell that somehow the neighborhood got its identity. It was as the same as all the others, the gray and a bit boring and a bit old, but the public space and the things that you can do in the public space and with the people created its different local identity, which is like around that park. So my story.
Thank you. It seems that even though we we haven't planned it, but Klaipėda took over the panel discussion somehow now, even though we haven't planned it. So let's see where it leads us. Eglė, what about you? Maybe not even one story, maybe a couple of stories.
Exactly, a couple of stories came to my mind, and one of them happened during the workshop of revealing identity of Panevėžys, city identity of Panevėžys, that Eugenijus mentioned before. And during a workshop where with the communities that were invited to participate, it was also still an online workshop. And for instance, there was a situation that one of the participants made really inappropriate comments about other citizens of the city, some racially inappropriate comments. No, so just to share this, how to say, this background dynamics between these processes. So you have to deal also with these kind of situations in those workshops. And it's not easy because personally you maybe would like to react really sharply and openly, but you have to manage the conflict, you have to manage the situation. So these things happen. It happened during the revealing an identity of the Panevėžys workshop, and it was challenging. But it's life, it's the thing. So that was one story, and the second one was. Maybe a bit more positive one during the workshop that actually we did together with you, Dominykai, when we were working on the Klaipėda identity case. What was nice and surprising for me that during the workshop, suddenly a metaphor of breathing appeared from the participants. We somehow arrived to mentioning, breathing together in the rhythm of the sea. We kind of, let ourselves drift a bit in the reflections of what we just said, and how this breathing concept, came out. And what's interestingly that it followed in after when we were doing also with the analysis of all the information gathered, it really made sense. It followed us throughout the process of sense making, and it became part of the city's narrative. So just another detail to notice that sometimes it happens that you have this mountain of information, but sometimes one word said by one community member but shared also by others, can feel that it's shared, how others react, how others reflect on it, can also help to actually form the city narrative.
Thank you. Yeah, maybe I won't go into a story myself, but I just want to reflect a little bit on what was the change for us when we started doing the workshops online virtually, and how physically you have a totally different dynamic, and you can feel different textures, different in betweens that can translate into information. And when you do that virtually, it's you have to adapt to that with all the technical difficulties that we already experience here now also, but with all the besides that, others with not having those 5 senses involved, and trying to adjust to that and framing the architecture of the research and the engagement process differently. So that's and it had many also stories related to that. One, Eglė knows that, or maybe I'll share that, even though you said that you don't want me to share, but at some point. But it was a funny story. I remember that we had the engagement session, and Eglė was something happened with her mic, and everybody was speaking, and Eglė was facilitating the event, and she was saying, "Oh, so nobody's speaking? So let's move on." And everybody's like, "Hey, we're saying that and that," and she's like, "Nobody's speaking," and I'm sitting across the table, and I'm trying to give her some notes, some sticky notes that, "Hey, they're speaking," and it was like, "Oh no, I wasn't there. I was texting to Eugenijus for him to give the notes to Eglė." So I remember that moment, but Eglė said that I think it's funny, and it was like I really enjoyed that, but. Sorry, Eglė, I think it's a funny story, and it shows the difference between virtual engagement and physical one when you have those difficulties that you even cannot, solve in certain situations, and it has to happen at that moment. The other question, and maybe a broader question that I would like you to think about and then tell the audience and me, because we're talking about the failing perspective, and what would you say are the 3 key ingredients for the process to fail when we're working with identities, trying to reveal it, engaging participants, maybe, and so on and so forth? what would you say from your professional expertise, from your experience backgrounds? What are the 3 key ingredients that ensure that the process 99.9% will fail? So, Eglė, let's start with you.
Okay, so there are really many ingredients that would, fail the process. So it's even hard to choose 3, but let me think. So first one would be like asking wrong questions to wrong people. So basically, or involving, somebody that's not complete, like not related to the case, or that the case is not like the question is not relevant to them, So if you ask, questions that are not relevant to people that do not care, you will not get usually quality results, and even dialogue, might fail. So yeah, that would be maybe one. And it's also connected to the second one. So how you ask questions, how you create a comfort, like basically the situation to ask questions, and also how do you ask questions, like from the communication point of view. If you ask 2 difficult questions, you use like complicated formulations, so it might be complicated, for people to participate. They actually won't have the access possibility to participate in a quality way. And at the same time, I think the third one is creating the atmosphere, the how to say, the context in which this dialogue or engagement, happens. So it's really easy, it's hard to create it online, as you mentioned. So basically, if the online environment, for instance, is not technically ready, not technically appropriate, or the staff is not unprepared in this way, so it's also really, really easy to kind of have the process, compromised. And at the same time, in the physical space, it's nice to do workshops and engage in different contexts, but being in the space always means that you're in interaction with the space, with the surroundings, with people around. So there might, some unexpected things happen all the time, like, so yeah, basically that may be 3 aspects.
Thank you. Justina, what about you?
Very funny question, because usually you would expect a question, how not to fail, the 3 tips and tricks. So while Eglė was talking, I thought of some that leads to failing. So the first one, I would say, let's say in my profession, and I came although I'm urbanist now, but my background is architecture. So the first failing is if you come with too big architect's ambition. Well, we are taught in architecture university that, yeah, everyone wants to be a star architect and to be to build something like huge and that everyone can remember. So if you come to a place, to a city, to a client, to a neighborhood, whatever, with the idea and this ambition to do something grand and big, probably you will fail. So that's my first failing lesson. The other one, then I thought that not listening enough and not hearing would be fail, but actually then I thought listening to the loudest speaking ones is also about failing. And I remembered one case on the project in Gargždai. It's a smaller town next to Klaipėda. We were doing regeneration plan for the city center, and the city center has very big market. And we're doing this public participation events. Everyone was talking what they want to see in the city, how they want city center to change, and basically they wanted it to change from like huge parking areas in the city into lively urban small town. But then in the events we had meeting with the market community, people who are selling things in the market, and the market is like really simple. So people are selling like vegetables, shoes, Chinese clothes, like whatever. And the meeting with them was such a fail because they were shouting on me. They were like gathering and making protests, and they were against many ideas, and they were pro like very simple ideas. So it would be that the continuation was that there were separate meetings with the mayor, with the team, and then we managed to come over this problem. But if we would listen to the ones who are the loudest ones, then then probably the decision would be a wrong one as well. So that's the other lesson.
Thank you. Interesting. Eglė, you answered it, and actually, I would like to come back to you, but maybe with another question. Girmantas, the floor is yours to tell us the top 3.
Well, it is a complicated question, to tell you the truth. However, I think number 1, following your process. And I believe that identity, even though this entire event and your experience is based around democratic and around inclusive design projects, I believe it is possible to create an autocratic, successful identity project as well as democratic. But then you have to identify that and you have to follow through all the way. If you try to mix those in between, something's gonna go wrong. You know, like if you try to pretend being democratic but actually are doing it autocratically, it's gonna be wrong. And if you pretend to be, you know, like to have the authority but you don't have it, it's also gonna go wrong. So I think, like, you know, following the process and having a clear structure is number 1 way to prevent failure. Number 2, I think also not understanding your stakeholders is something that that could lead you to failure. And understanding the stakeholders is also quite complex, especially when we talk about the identity. From marketing perspective, you know, the stakeholder is your end consumer. But when we talk about the identity, it's more important about who's going to implement it, who has the right, who has the legal tools to either approve it or decline it, who has the authority to give feedback or whatever. So not understanding the key stakeholders who can influence your process, it's definitely a big, you know, big risk of failure. And as for the third one, I don't know. We did everything right, so it's hard to figure out. But yeah, I think I want to reflect on what Justina said. You know, like with not going too big. Like, you can go big. You know, it's like you either go big or go home. So. But then again, you know, it's about following through. Oh, I got the third one. I remembered myself. I'm not believing in it. You know, like if not wanting it bad enough, it's also, you know, a way to fail. And you know, like in our case, we had people that really wanted, you know, the process to fall apart. But then Klaipėda AD, as the city development agency and as our core crew, we were like, you know, not a big team, but still we were really determined to make sure that we see this project through and we take it through to the very end. So basically, you know, not committing to the project, not committing to following through these steps. It's also, I think, a bit of a risk.
Yeah, thank you. And imagine now we have like 3 perspectives with 3 different backgrounds, and when we need to engage many of those, as Girmantas was saying, or in Mariupol case with Justina, how difficult is that? And then make sense out of it and find a story that actually is recognized by the same stakeholders, because it has to be recognized and they have to believe in it. Not 100% all of them, but for it to, you know, to start moving, it has to be believed and then acted out. And I want to touch a little bit, maybe, probably you will say yes, but maybe to tell us why. Why is the trust important between the parties involved? So let's say, because we are different stakeholders when we're working on cases. So that, yes, we are the critical Eglė and me, but with Girmantas, you were representing Klaipėda ID. With Justina, you were representing the urbanistic perspective from Pupa agency. So how much the trust plays a role in the whole process between the parties involved who are working together. So I do understand that it's important, but why do you think it's crucial, or maybe less important, but why? So Justina, maybe I want to start with you, and you can tell, you know, from the work that we're doing together, maybe as an example?
Of course, the trust important, but I would say that what is important, let's say for me, for my team, it's also to have this fun with everyone that you are working with. And I talk about partners, but also clients, even with the stakeholders that you meet in public events. So this fun, and also I don't know how it's in English, like sympathy, that you like the people that you are meeting, that you admire them. If it's a mayor or I don't know, city architect or designers that you are collaborating. So I think nowadays working with people and having a nice time for me and for our team is equally important as delivering good product. But maybe it relates all together, because when you work with people that you somehow have contact, then you enjoy the project more, you enjoy the process more, and then you're more enthusiastic, and the result is usually more enthusiastic. And then I would add that if people trust you less, or if they like the result less, with your enthusiasm, you can prove them that the result, let's say, is good or is worth. That's my idea.
Happy to hear that. Eglė, what about you?
So thank you for the question,
partners.
Yeah, so thank you for the question.
Why do you think the trust is important between partners working together in this process?
Well, first of all, I'm really happy about the question, because as you know, actually the reason why we're here in Oslo is because we're doing an international project about trust making and empowering youth, trusting youth to become change makers of the city and to participate in a more quality way in city planning. And just again, from the Oslo experience, we noticed that, for instance, in Oslo and Norway, there are different, trust manifests itself in very different ways. For instance, you go to pay, with a bank card, and you have to insert the sum of the money yourself. You can see it, but I mean, like people trust. You have to insert the number. So I was just connecting, and kind of motivating why that topic is important. But to answer to your question in a more direct way, I think and I believe that trust as an exchange of feeling towards, in between different stakeholders, actors, is fundamental to empower them. Trust empowers. So if I feel trusted, I feel, more willing maybe to share my opinions, my ideas, something else. If I trust somebody else, I maybe open up in a more easy way. So trust empowers to act, to tell, and actions and really sincere communication then, makes a change, basically. So it's something that, in between, in the air, in the context, small things, kind of makes trust manifest in different contexts, but it empowers in a very different way in different contexts.
Yeah, empowering each other when trusting each other is crucial, because many challenges appear during the process, as Girmantas was telling in also Klaipėda's case. So I'm happy that we're here together, that Girmantas, Justina are joining us for this panel. So we are in a good relationship, so we trust each other, even though they didn't know a lot about the panel. They came and trusted us, to participate, and that everything will be fine. And Girmantas, now the floor is to you. The mic is to you. What do you think? Why the trust is important?
Well, from our perspective and the project that we did together, it was primarily extremely politically charged and sensitive, even I could say fragile project. So it was quite important to trust the partners and to explain that fragility to the interested parties who are involved in the project, to basically ensure that we are able to follow through, to follow the process and complete the project in a way that we aimed to achieve it. So I think that trust was also really important, but at the same time, I believe that this mutual trust is something that's crucial for a successful project, because the way I trust the designers that they're going to do their best, the same I would expect from the other team, that they know that I'm doing my best to make sure that this project is coming through and this project is going to be successful. And let's say both parties don't know half of the story. Both parties know only their part of the story. But building that trust and trusting your partners that you're in this together is something that enables to achieve those results and to achieve those award-winning results. So I think building that trust early in the process is very important.
Thank you. My questions are done. I have more, but probably not for today. I want now to give them more to each each one of you, just to wish something for the audience, who will probably in one way or the other will be related to revealing identity, designing it, researching it, managing the process. So just not an advice, just a wish for them to carry with them. So Eglė.
Okay, maybe it could be like, go where the things happen. So be the context where things happen. Listen to people who care about the topics that you are working with, or you want to change, make a change. That would be, I guess, the main wish that I could. Also, the third one, be brave. Yeah, because then you need to have some bravery also to to approach and to kind of face the complexity that those engagement processes put you in. But yeah, that would be my recipe, I guess.
Thank you. Justina.
Maybe I would add that work with different people as well, like talk, sketch, brainstorm, collaborate with different minds that maybe sometimes are different than yours because they might have different perspective. And then the best ideas are born, when something unexpected meets. Maybe that would be my wish.
Thank you. Girmantas.
Well, in short, just do it, because that's gonna be the best way to have some fun and to learn something. Like sometimes you win, sometimes you learn, and basically, if it wasn't for the failure before us, there's a high probability we wouldn't have been as successful as we were. Funny story, when I joined Klaipėda AD team, we were discussing with the team like, hey guys, we have to think of something extraordinary for Klaipėda. We have to put Klaipėda on the map, or like come up with some crazy marketing ideas, to have some international recognition awards or whatever. But then the identity project was always there, but it was always like kind of overlooked because everybody knew how politically charged it was, and it was like more as a task to be completed, just to check mark and that's it. But then at the end of the day, when we found the right partners and we found the right process and we followed through, we ended up creating that award-winning result. So also it's the biggest opportunities lie right in front of you. It's just a matter of picking it up and just doing it.
Thank you. Thank you, Girmantas. Thank you, Justina. Thank you, Eglė, for sharing your experience and thoughts and insights and those wishes that I know the audience will carry with them, and they will reveal the identities that will transform for the better. So thank you. This was the panel discussion, and now the last word. Thank you very much, everybody who was here with us through the whole process. So we showered with identity. We got intimate with identity. 3 hours. It's a lot of time. It's a lot of time in this busy environment that we find ourselves. And I'm happy that you did that we did that we spent 3 hours on the important case. And I hope the shower was interesting, engaging, deep enough, and fun. And if anybody is interested in more about the identity, about the work that we're doing, or anything else that we were talking today, just drop us an email. You can find it in our website. And I hope see you soon. Thank you and have a good day.